Have you ever experienced that breathless fall in your dream where you're just about to hit and hear your bones crunch with your weight, but then suddenly you wake up, perspiring down to your core, heaving breathlessly, your throat constricted, your lungs about to explode, and your heart ready to burst out of your ribcage? Well, what if you aren't actually asleep, but you experienced it fully conscious? This is what we are about to reveal in this video. It's not for the faint-hearted, so viewer discretion is advised. Before we dive into the video, I'd like to ask for your support by subscribing to our channel. Currently, only 8% of our viewers are subscribed, but your subscription helps us create more content like this. Simply click the subscribe button, like this video, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest uploads. In this video, we will be sharing 3 unusual caver fall accidents that led to tragic outcomes, proving how small, seemingly harmless mistakes can have devastating consequences. Before we dive into today's video, make sure to hit the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. We upload daily. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and join our amazing community. Now, let's get started. Cueva de Serpiente Dormida, Costa Rica. Costa Rica, officially known as the Republic of Costa Rica, is a small country in North America's central region. It borders the Caribbean Sea to the east, the Pacific Ocean to the west, Nicaragua to the north, and Panama to the south. Seemingly with a minute existence compared to other countries on the world map, this country is actually nature's gift to humanity. Even though it is small in size, Costa Rica has the most diverse wildlife in all of Latin America. One of the major tourist attractions of the country is its caves. The history revolving around these caves is so mind-boggling that the natural artifacts restored within them are hard to believe. What if we told you that most of Costa Rica's caves were formed 20 to 70 million years ago? As of today, several such caves are unearthed during exploration expeditions. These caves offer a unique perspective into the past, a world that existed millions of years ago, calling out the curious ones, the cavers who venture underground to discover and study stalagmites, ancient marine fossils, and prehistoric animal species for exploration and research purposes. And Jose Alfaro was one of these curious ones. Jose Alfaro was an experienced caver and a native of Costa Rica. He was a much-loved and respected member of the Costa Rican cavers community. Caves in Costa Rica dip down to 790 feet below sea level, while others can stand as tall as 985 feet above. You can still witness small seashells embedded in the cave walls, telling untold stories of when the area was submerged underwater, not to mention the fossilized sea life jutting out from strange turns and corners, reminding us of the lives that roamed freely within these caverns in a time lost now to history. Now, to make these exploration activities undertaken by researchers, tourists, and adventurers, cavers like Jose Alfaro, who must go in the first place, become the torchbearers and create a safe passage for others. Jose carried out various expeditions to investigate, study, and research the cave's fauna. These explorations document new findings regarding multiple species of reptiles, animals, and birds that dwell therein. Cave exploration involves everything from walking in open-area caverns to crawling between incredibly narrow, rib-crushing passages, swimming in bodies of water, and bearing challenging, suffocating environments that test the cavers physically and mentally. It's not easy, as the cavers sometimes have to risk their lives to carry out these jobs. Jose Alfaro was no different. But who would have thought that Alfaro would have to pay a heavy price during an expedition just because of a mistake caused by someone else, resulting in a tragic loss to the whole community. On the fateful day of March 4th, 2017, Jose Alfaro prepared to enter the Serpiente Dormida cave. This particular cave was named Serpiente Dormida after encounters between various types of snakes and the cave explorers. The cave's opening has a vertical shaft where the caver has to plunge deep down 180 feet through rappelling. Rappelling is descending from a point using a rope coiled around the body by one end. The other end is fixed at a higher point. Well, due to his vast experience in vertical cave diving, the 45-year-old was assigned the rigging of the pit, which required 2 rebelays. A rebelay is made by attaching one rope to 2 anchors. The first is placed at the point of descent, while the other is placed farther down. This method ensures the caver's safety by redirecting the rope away from hazards such as abrasive rocks, waterfalls, etc. As Alfaro descended, neither he nor his team would have anticipated that a simple little mistake would cost them severely. Alfaro descended expertly through the vertical shaft of the cave, and he started deploying the rope from the rope bag. After rigging the second re-belay approximately 100 feet above the ground, all the while rappelling, that rope was carrying his fate, so he continued downwards, completing his task. The bag contained 2 ropes of equal length left untied at the end. Unaware of the approaching disaster, Alfaro rappelled 20 feet down before he rappelled at the end of the first rope. When deploying a rope from a rope bag, it is almost impossible for a rappeller to detect an unknotted end of the rope. As a result of this, Alfaro experienced a fall from approximately 80 feet. The shock of having no support suddenly, and then experiencing the fall with the certainty of meeting death within a few moments is certainly enough for a person to experience their blood freezing right in their veins. He fell, and his team waiting at the top of the cave heard him fall. They rushed to him as soon as they could, having no clue what had just happened in the last few seconds. Alfaro heard his bones crunching after hitting the ground with full force, and felt concussions on his head and face. He felt his life seeping out of his lifeless, numbing body, his breath coming in haggard gasps. He succumbed within minutes of his fall. When his team reached him, they confirmed multiple fractures to his legs and trauma to his face. They witnessed Alfaro taking his last breaths in agony, and finally leaving the world, doing what he loved best. His team and the caving community were shocked and aggrieved about losing their experienced member, a lively human being as well as a dear friend. His passing opened up new questions regarding the safety of cavers. The team speculated that it was doubtful that Alfaro was aware of the untied pair of ropes in the rope bag. However, it still needs to be made clear as to who prepared the rope bag by creating a massive blunder of keeping untied ropes therein, causing a life to be taken away just because of a silly yet enormous mistake. 3 things are advised from this. Number 1, caving clubs should follow strict protocols when packing rope bags for riggers. 2, when packing someone else's bag, ensure that the ropes are tied in knots and shown to the rigger beforehand. And 3, it is highly advised that the rigger prepare their own rope bags and inspect the contents again before descending to save themselves from any such disaster. In such situations, remember, a loose end can cause a loved one to meet his life's end. Now, let's move on to the 23rd of November 2019, Valhalla Cave, Alabama. Jackson County, Alabama is considered a caver's paradise. It has approximately 1 cave per 15 people. Alabama's intriguing geology and the exploration opportunity that it offers make it a bucket list destination for enthusiastic cavers worldwide. These caves have significance both scientifically and historically, as they are home to more than 1,000 species. Alabama has more than 4,200 caves, as per the report of the Alabama Cave Survey of 2007, which makes it a universal hotspot for adventurers and explorers globally. The fact that the state was submerged underwater in prehistoric times makes it an invaluable asset to unexplored networks of underground spaces. Can you imagine all of the mysteries and species that it holds, tucked securely beneath our feet? Unbelievable. Valhalla Cave is nature's bounty, located in Jackson County, Alabama. It is only accessible by vertical caving. It feels less like a vertical tunnel and more like a vast canyon passage. Its sheer magnitude and impressive size can only be experienced by the rappeller who dives down the cave. Once you reach the bottom, there's more than a mile to explore, with small passages which involve crawling and walking. The cave, in general, is a maze of mud. Its magnificence is well distributed in layers of Bangor limestone and Pennington limestone from top to bottom. It is one of the United States' most exotic and alluring open-pit caves. It pulls in cavers like magnets from all across the globe. Well, this group of 5 students from Purdue University were the same. They couldn't resist the charm, and thus they planned a camping, hiking, and exploration trip to the Valhalla Cave Pit on the 22nd of November 2019. None of the 5 experienced adventurers had the slightest idea what tragedy awaited them in the next few hours. Amongst the group was Trevor Cole, a free spirit who had already marked himself as an experienced rock climber, rappeller, and cliffhanger, according to his social media accounts. He could be seen comfortably hanging from the sides of mountains where others could only dream of being in his place. Who would have thought that this adventurer's fate hung with his hanging ropes? Trevor Cole, the 21-year-old student, was originally from Austin, Texas. He was enrolled in the Mechanical Engineering Department in the Honors College, on track to receive his bachelor's degree in 2020 and, consequently, a master's in 2021 from Purdue University. Cole also spent his last semester studying at Shanghai Jiaotong University in China. In the summer, he worked as an intern at Siemens in Norwood, Ohio. He was an active member of the Purdue Outing Club, and he was also a member of the Formula One racing team. Although Purdue students had proper permits from the Southeastern Cave Conservancy to explore the Valhalla Cave, the university and its outing club did not sanction this particular trip. On that fateful Friday night, the 5 students, all experienced climbers, camped near the cave and then rose early the next day to explore the majestic Valhalla. The opening to the cave is a hole in the ground on the side of a mountain. The group started rigging the pit several times, trying to get their primary rope to reach the bottom, which, unfortunately, wasn't long enough to reach the bottom. Hence, they tied down 2 ropes by doing a double fisherman's knot. When they tried rigging the now tied ropes, it was done in a way that the placement of the knot hung right at the lip of the pit. Cole, being the most experienced amongst the group, and confident in his knot-passing abilities, volunteered to go in first. Cole rappelled, and when he reached the knot, he attached his standard 6-bar rappel pack just below the knot and locked it off. As per the standard protocol, in securing the knotted ropes, the rappeller needs to attach and lock the rack and caving equipment to the rope in order to continue rappelling. Cole followed the standard protocols, but unfortunately he didn't realize that the rack was not reattached to his harness. The rappel rack enables a rappeller to control the rate of descent by modifying the amount of friction on the device. What happened next, you can probably imagine, but in some ways is unimaginable. Cole resumed rappelling expertly, unaware that the next few moments would be his last. The brave and adventurous 21-year-old fell 200 feet deep down the pit. He didn't even have time to realize what had happened to make his freefall. Instead, he only was able to meet his death in a matter of seconds as he landed heavily at the bottom of the pit. He didn't even fortunately have time to experience any pain. Death was instantaneous. His team heard the fall, and shock reverberated through them. They did not attempt to enter the cave, and instead immediately started to reach for a place where they could get a cell phone signal, as the area was quite remote. It took them quite some time to drive a few miles over rough country roads before they finally reached a paved road and an area with working cell phone signals. They started calling 911 and rescue centers for help. Chattanooga-Hamilton County Rescue Squad, or CHCRS, responded. It took another 4 hours to recover Trevor Cole's body. The time delay didn't cause any change in the outcome of circumstances. Upon examining the body and the gear, the carabiner attached to his harness D-ring was partially opened in its sleeve, suggesting that Cole's weight forced it to open and detached it from the rack, resulting in the fall. A carabiner, or carabiner spelled with a C or K, or a climbing clip, is a specialized type of shackle, a metal loop with a spring-loaded gate used to quickly and reversibly connect components, most notably in safety-critical systems. Cole's death was the 3rd in the same year in Jackson County. The most recent one at the Valhalla Cave Pit was on the 10th of June 1984, at the same entrance that Cole entered. Upon interviewing the team members, it also came to everyone's attention that the group intended to pass and share the gear up and down the 227-foot deep pit. It was silly and reckless for the entire team to go ahead with this plan. This indicates that the team needed adequate gear and to be adequately prepared in order to carry out the entire expedition, which they weren't. This was enough of an early warning sign that they should have called off the entire trip in its early stages. Though the lack didn't directly contribute to the tragic outcome of this adventure, it was enough that it should have given them a heads up. This group was adequately trained in vertical pit caving techniques, and they would have had to complete the trip had their rope reached the bottom. The whole equation changed with the inadequate rope length, calling for an intelligent action plan, which was not followed. Adventurers like cave exploration don't call for impulsive decision-making, but rather a well-thought-out strategy and adequate thinking before plunging into any pit head down. It is advised that interested groups of cavers be adequately educated about the inherent risks of vertical cave diving and the need for proper training. It is also suggested that people invest in proper gear and equipment and learn proper techniques to prevent such tragic incidents from happening. And finally, September 6th, 2015, Stevens Gap Cave. Would anyone as young, full of life, and having a love for the outdoors as 18-year-old Patrick Wurzner have thought of meeting his fate at one of the most picturesque and supposedly most photographed cave pits in the entire United States? Yeah, you heard that right. It won't be an exaggeration to name Stevens Gap as one of the most beautiful caves in the world. It is situated in Jackson County, Alabama, and is also known as one of the hottest caving hotspots on the face of the globe. It is 30 miles east of Huntsville, one of the state's most populous cities. It's a 30-minute drive from the city, and it's relatively easy to reach by vehicle. One needs a permit to visit Stevens Gap Cave from the Southeastern Cave Conservancy, the largest conservancy in the world, by the way. The permit is 100% free of charge. If you have chosen a sunny day to visit the cave, you are in for a breathtaking view. The magic begins as soon as the sun rises, and its rays fall through the lip of the cave to the bottom of the pit like a golden river cascading down brightly lit pathways. It is so mesmerizing that cavers worldwide frequently visit this miniature wonderland of nature to experience its magic firsthand. Though considered the most breathtaking cave, it is hard to believe, yet confirmed, that the beauty somehow could be deceptive if one is not careful enough. The description fits well, as this attractive natural spot has claimed many lives recently. One can be caught off guard when entering Stevens Gap due to its vast walk-in entrance through the mouth of the cave. The path toward the pit starts horizontally, caving into the shaft like a cylindrical vertical pit. The catch is that you don't have to be an experienced caver to enter this cave. If you possess a pair of decent hiking boots, you can walk into the central pit and explore its surroundings. When an intimidating task suddenly feels so easy, it's better to be cautious. Otherwise, a small mistake could lead to drastic outcomes. The real challenge starts when you wish to explore the 143-foot deep pit, which is only possible with rappelling and experience in vertical cave diving. However, Patrick didn't go for any exploration purposes in this case. He solely went to admire the beauty of the scenery. Patrick Wurzner was a civil engineering student at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. He was a former student at John Carroll Catholic High School. On the 6th of September 2015, Patrick visited the cave and he had lunch with his friend. As per his friend, Patrick wasn't wearing any special gear, so supposedly, the plan was to visit the outskirts of the cave and enjoy the serenity and beauty of the place. It wasn't the first time that Patrick had visited the site, so it's understood that he knew the area well, and he was familiar with the cave and its surroundings. The 18-year-old sat on a ledge known as the pedestal, named by the cavers. The pedestal is right inside the preserve's main cave. He was with his friend, talking and appreciating the beauty that surrounded them. Who knew that Patrick was enjoying the final moments of his life, where tragedy was about to occur? As he tried to stand and leave, he lost his balance on the limestone and suddenly fell off the ledge to a whopping 50 feet down the 143-foot deep pit inside the cave. It was a sudden fall that took his life away in mere seconds. His friend immediately called for help. Jackson County's first responders reached the scene only to pronounce him dead right then and there at the cave. Coincidentally, some local cavers were just arriving in order to repel the gap's vertical entrance. They assisted Patrick's friend and local authorities with body recovery. The incident was ruled an accident. Patrick was a sports enthusiast and he loved the outdoors. He was a good kid, generally, loved rock climbing, and he planned numerous weekend trips with friends, climbing and hiking over the past year. He was enjoying Mother Nature right before his encounter with death. He went doing what he loved most. However, for his family and friends, a loss as young as Patrick was a huge shock. His family declined to comment on the incident as it was too painful. He was a devout Catholic, and he helped serve the masses at large. As for the small community of students at the UAB, all came together to mourn the sudden death of their colleague, and they were there to comfort one another. Though accidents could occur anytime, anywhere, the takeaway from Wurzner's incident is to wear appropriate gear. Maybe only proper hiking shoes whenever visiting places like Stevens Gap. Caves are inherently dangerous places with dark, moist, slippery environments. Moreover, cavers express caving experiences as indescribable, bringing in an immense amount of adrenaline rush. It can never discount the amount of dangers, though, that come with the sport. 3 things are highly advised here. Number 1, stay more than a body's length away from the edge when near an exposed edge to ensure safety at all times. Number 2, if nearing the edge, one should be clipped to a safety line before setting foot towards the edge. And 3, when approaching an edge, one should do it in a prone position rather than standing straight. Little Brush Creek Cave is Utah's deepest cave, stretching 6 miles long with a maximum depth of 658 feet. It can only be safely explored in the winter when the water outside is frozen, and the cave's cold interior challenges even the toughest cavers. In 2018, a group of 4 adults met in a rehab clinic. The facility encouraged them to stick together as a group to hold each other accountable and avoid relapse. Together, they embarked on adventures in the wilderness far from the stress and temptations of city life. So far, they had only hiked, but they wanted something more hands-on, something more exciting. They had never gone caving before in their lives, but the name Little Brush Creek sounded harmless. Little did they know, they would soon find themselves in a fight for their lives, trapped in the darkness. Little Brush Creek Cave is located in the Uinta Mountains of Utah at an elevation of 8,000 feet. At those heights, the thin air strains the body of any would-be explorers, wearing out even the strongest athletes. And if people aren't acclimated to the low oxygen content, they could get lightheaded or even faint during outdoor adventures. The top of the Uinta Mountains are composed of non-porous rock, but over time, small cracks allowed water to flow into the soft limestone beneath, which formed a network of tunnels below ground. These conditions create what's known as allogenic caves, and they contain unique formations thanks to the different chemical makeup of the waters that flow within them. The group of 4 young adults, 3 men and 1 woman in their early 20s, were getting stir-crazy in California. The winter months limited their access to the outdoor activities they were using to recover in rehab. That's when they learned about Little Brush Creek Cave from YouTube videos and online blogs. Springtime melt floods the cave, turning it from a dangerous cave into a deadly one. They realized it was the perfect time to explore the cave, which was just 2 states over in Utah. The friends followed an outback trail through the snowy mountains to a clearing that doubles as a parking area. From there, they walked through the deep, powdery snow to a steep hill that meets the side of the Uinta Mountains. Rainwater and melting snow pooled along the wall where the slope meets the rock, forming a large, bell-shaped hole that became the cave's entrance. They climbed down the nearly vertical drop that levels out before the cave. They entered Little Brush Creek Cave around midday. Inside the entrance, crystal-clear icicles mirror the stalactites deeper within, and large, frosty stalagmites catch the light from headlamps to create a neon blue glow. Deeper within, the cave's unique ice structures can reach over 10 feet long. The rocky floor of the entrance allows only around 100 feet of sunlight inside before the cool depths snuff out what little heat the wintry sun provided. Just beyond the shadows, the cavers encountered dozens of stripped and shaped trees that slid down after a logging operation accident that occurred roughly 20 years ago. The accident also sent more rubble into the cave, pinching the first tunnel past the entrance.
Little Brush Creek Cave's entry is easy to navigate even for first-time cavers, but the logs do present some unique challenges. The rocky foundation underneath the logs could cause them to dislodge and roll if people disturb them too much. Thin pieces of timber can break apart, splintering and stabbing cavers through their clothing, and other breaks can send wood catapulting toward other cavers. So, watch your step. Past this section, there are multiple paths cavers can take. There's a small tube called the Bobcat Crawl that takes cavers from one side of the mountain to the other, but it's just a straight shot. The group could have trained with this tunnel first, but they wanted the real cave experience. Deeper in, where the rubble ends and the smooth, rocky floor of the cave begins, the cave twists into a curvy slide. Ropes are anchored to the wall, so splunkers can clip and hold onto it for stability as they venture down this steep section. At the bottom, most cavers will encounter Little Brush Creek's first water section, dubbed the Corner Pool and the Glowing Stream. Adventurers must steel their courage and jump into the frigid water as the cold instantly shocks their system, tightening their legs and forcing their lungs to the point of near hyperventilation. The 4 new cavers plan to go through the atrium past the waters, the shower room, the pillar and balcony room, and the black rock room, where the smooth yellowed stone is splintered with regions of shiny black onyx. The group also found a gate with frosty, feather-like crystals growing down from the ceiling and over-rusted metal bars. This area is sometimes called Toothbrush Cave, named for those unique crystals at the entrance. Their research didn't warn them about the vertical passages deep within the cave. These sections of the cave contain vertical pits that are much more dangerous than the main route. Vertical caving can be one of the most dangerous parts of the hobby, as one slip can mean certain death. One of the cave's most daunting sections is a bolted crack that combines vertical caving with another dangerous element, the squeeze. This whole crack is very narrow, and cavers have to traverse it without proper vision of what lies below. Cracks and climbs like these should only be attempted by elite cavers. The team slowly marched forward. 20 to 30 feet past their chosen entrance, Little Brush Creek Cave quickly changes into a slide, formed from a cave-in that brings cavers to a massive 40-foot drop called the Funnel Pit. They weren't far into the cave at this point, but instead of turning around, they made the bold move to climb down the pit. Unfortunately, in their rush to adventure, they skipped all the important details that new cavers must learn about. They were woefully unprepared. They only had 1 small headlamp each, and they had no knee pads, helmets, or batteries. To make matters worse, they were dressed in basic attire, with cotton shirts and regular pants. They were already feeling the consequences of their mistakes just a few hundred feet into the cave. Inside the cave, temperatures average in the 30s, just a few degrees above freezing. Maybe their choice to avoid the main route was a blessing in disguise. If they had traveled the main route, well, they'd likely be frozen before any rescuers could arrive. The 3 shuffled down the funnel and somehow managed to climb down a 40-foot wall. They caught their breath on the next ledge. They only had 2 directions. They could go back up, or try to climb down another roughly 80 to 150-foot cliff. Most of them were already exhausted, but one man was bold enough to attempt the climb without ropes or proper gear. His family called him fearless, and in this moment he proved his mettle, beginning his descent into the darkness without hesitation. He slowly felt around for each foothold and lowered himself down one section at a time. Eventually, he was almost invisible as the light from the other cavers struggled to reach him. They had no idea how far down he was when the elements got to him. He wasn't equipped to deal with the cave's chilly temperatures. He had no extra layers of clothing and no gloves or adequate shoes. The cold made his fingers struggle to hold onto the smooth stone, and his shoes couldn't get enough traction to grip. The newbie caver managed to climb a respectable distance, despite handicapping himself without the proper gear, but unfortunately he lacked one more vital piece of caving equipment: a harness. A harness would allow him some leeway if he made a mistake, and if he got stuck, well, his friends might be able to pull him to safety. With a harness, he might be able to catch himself, stabilize, and begin to rappel or climb down again. But without a harness, he had no chance. The caver took one more step and slipped, plummeting into the darkness below. Some accounts say that the pit he was climbing was roughly 80 feet deep. Others report it was at least 150 feet, which means he fell anywhere from 40 to 100 feet down. He let out a quick cry as he fell. The sound of his flesh bouncing off the cold floor echoed through the pit, followed by his screams of agony. His friends were horrified by his shouts. They stood, trembling, unable to will themselves to climb down and attempt first aid. They tried to turn around and climb back up the first shaft, but the cold and their fear made their knees weak and their hands shake. The 3 remaining cavers couldn't climb out for help. They were all stuck in Little Brush Creek Cave, and one of them was dying. Hours passed by while the 3 remaining cavers struggled with their thoughts as their bodies were assailed by the bitter cold, and their injured friend continued to wail in the darkness below. As they sat shivering on the dark ledge, another ghastly thought crept into their minds. They never told anyone they were going caving. They broke the first rule of caving, and now they had to get lucky or die. This grim realization ignited the adrenaline in one of the cavers, and he forced himself to start the climb back up the first 40-foot shaft. His arms trembled at first, but as he made progress, his movements got smoother. The terror dulled the pain of his dry, cracked skin, the sting of the air, and the burn of his muscles. For a while, he paid no attention to the rapid pulse banging in his chest until fatigue set in. The rubbery feeling was gone, but now the cold combined with lactic acid in his muscles to stiffen them as if he was wearing casts on his arms and legs. Each time he reached for a handhold, he winced in pain. Each time he pushed up with his feet, he felt the sting through his quads. All the while, his friend writhed in pain, howling through the cave. With luck on his side, the brave explorer reached onto the ledge of the funnel room and pulled with all his remaining strength. He made it up the cliff, scrambled through the rocky incline, and ducked under the metal gate wreathed in crystals. He stared at his phone. No reception. He dashed out of the rubble-filled mouth of the cave and stumbled onto the snow, leaving blood-tinged handprints from the cracks along his knuckles. He stared in dismay. There was still no reception. He scrambled up the snowy banks and ran as fast as he could, with each step sinking his legs deep into the snow. Once he reached the clearing by the car, he had enough distance from the massive Uinta Mountains to make the call. But the group's torment was far from over. The people on the other line struggled to understand him as he panted for breath. His sinuses went into overdrive, filling his nose and throat with mucus to protect the delicate tissues of his throat and lungs from the bitter winter air. It made his voice even harder to hear. Once the message got through to the operator, he had more bad news to deal with. The department who received the call had no experience with cave rescues. They would send over any police or firefighters they could spare, but everyone would have to wait for specialists to arrive before they could begin the rescue. Dispatch contacted the National Cave Rescue Commission's Rocky Mountain region, which utilized their call-out service to send the distress signal to any available volunteer rescuers. Multiple on-call volunteers heard the message and agreed to venture to Little Brush Creek Cave, but it would take them nearly 12 hours to reach the parking lot deep in the wilderness. All the while, the injured caver was battling for survival. Once rescuers arrived, they quickly made it to the first ledge, and then down to the injured caver. This section had ropes and anchors, so the properly equipped experts rappelled down in record speed. Once by the patient's side, rescuers saw the damage he had sustained. The fallen caver had numerous severe injuries. It was a miracle he was still alive. His ankle was broken, his pelvis cracked, both wrists were shattered, both elbows were also broken, and as his head ricocheted off the stone floor, the impact also broke his cheekbone, his eye socket, and his jaw. On top of these horrifying injuries, his limbs were turning blue from frostbite. As medics assessed the injured caver, other rescuers helped the remaining man and woman into harnesses. Then, they slowly helped the shivering cavers up the funnel pit. Once up top, they were given extra layers and assessed for any injuries. They weren't in any serious trouble, so they were given the option to wait for their friend or go to the hospital. Down below, the injured caver was faced with an intensely stressful situation. Reports didn't indicate what he and his friends were overcoming in rehab, but the U.S. is still gripped by an opioid epidemic, so it's likely he could have had troubles with pills. If the injured caver was recovering from an addiction to these substances, he would have been faced with a terrible dilemma. His pain was unreal, so medics would likely offer strong painkillers like morphine to make the extraction easier for all parties. But any painkillers could rekindle an addiction. Because of the injuries sustained by the fallen caver, a regular stretcher wouldn't be enough to get him out safely. Instead, they used a litter, which had the same rugged material as a normal stretcher, but with an added basket supporting structure around the outside. This structure provided an extra layer of protection for the patient, and the rigidity of the tubes helped maintain the patient's posture. To help even more, litters like these can also include a spine board, a neck brace, and multiple straps. The Little Brush Creek Cave rescue utilized a Stokes basket model, which was transferred to the rescue site in pieces and reassembled at the extraction point, so rescuers didn't have to carry a bulky and awkward device down the dangerous vertical drops. The model rescuers used was also painted orange, so it would immediately stand out in the light of their headlamps. There was no chance of losing sight of the patient once the operation began. The only downside with this model was the cold. The metal and plastic of the rigid structure could easily become cold enough to cause damage to any exposed skin. But the rescuers solved that problem by wrapping the patient in a thermal blanket, and anyone handling the basket used thick gloves to block the cold. Thankfully, the accident occurred close to the entrance, and there weren't many obstacles for rescuers to overcome. Rescuers could have used the original anchors to save the man and woman trapped on the first ledge, but the injured caver was at the bottom of the second pit. To get him up safely, rescuers had to reinforce a pulley system to reduce the force needed to pull the injured caver up the cliff. That's standard procedure, but the shape of the tunnels challenged the rescuers. The rope had to snake through an L-shaped hole with sharp angles at the top and bottom, followed by a long stretch and then another shaft. It took a few hours to complete, but once the line was in place, rescuers secured the Stokes litter to the rope with tough straps and began hauling the patient up the cave. At one point, they had to stand him up to fit through a narrow crack, but the rescuers helped him through the pain by distracting him with conversation. They asked which actor he'd want to cover him if his rescue ever turned into a movie deal. At 10 a.m., nearly 15 hours after the miraculous distress call reached the dispatch, the injured patient was finally brought to the surface. Rescuers already set up another simple rope system to get the stretcher up the remaining snow-covered slopes, and once they overcame that final obstacle, the patient was safely secured in an ambulance. Further down the road, a medical evacuation helicopter found a safe clearing to land. The two teams rendezvoused at the clearing just beyond the trees, and the man was flown to a hospital in Salt Lake City for emergency treatment. He was in critical condition for a while, which put his friends and loved ones on edge as they prayed for his recovery. Ultimately, he praised the efforts of Salt Lake City Fire Captains David Dixon and Stave Crandall for their heroic and selfless efforts. The injured caver's family started a GoFundMe to help cover the cost of his treatment, and cavers from all over the world joined together to raise nearly $8,000 for the injured explorer. The group of 4 newbie cavers had respectable rehab goals, but their story is a reminder that caves don't care about the lives of those who venture inside. Caves will claim lives instantly and without remorse, so always be prepared if you dare to venture deep below ground. Would you be the brave caver who risked it all to climb out of Little Brush Creek Cave to save his friends? Or would the cold and fear leave you stranded like the rest of them? Tell us how you'd react on that dark ledge in the comments section below. And while you're there, shine some light on that like button and secure your own ropes with a subscription to the channel so that you don't miss the next mind-blowing video.